The guard's voice sliced through the humid Virginia morning air like a siren. "Ma'am, impersonating a naval officer is a federal offense. Take that jacket off." Everyone at the naval station gate stopped. The low murmur of engines died as commuters craned their necks to see the scene unfolding near the checkpoint. A line of sailors, junior officers, and civilian contractors stood frozen in half shock, half curiosity. The woman in question didn't move. She sat behind the wheel of a dusty gray sedan, her window rolled halfway down, her expression unreadable. Her name was Lana Rhoads, and she had seen far worse than an overeager master-at-arms. Lana looked nothing like what the guard expected a SEAL to look like. Her dark blonde hair was pulled into a functional knot, her jacket worn, its olive drab color faded from sun and salt water. Above the breast pocket glinted a tiny golden trident, slightly dulled the way only real ones ever were. The guard, Miller, had spotted it instantly. To him it screamed stolen valor. He stepped forward, puffing up with borrowed authority. "I'm not going to ask again. Identification now." Lana's hand moved slowly to the glove box. Not nervous, deliberate. A faint hum of engines in the distance, the call of a gull, ordinary sounds framing something about to become extraordinary. She produced a small leather ID wallet and handed it out the window. Miller flipped it open, squinting at the worn credentials. His lips curled. "This is fake. Commander Lana Rhoads, Naval Special Warfare Command." "Ma'am, that's cute, but SEALs don't have women." "Nice try," a few sailors nearby chuckled. A camera phone rose discreetly. Lana didn't speak. Her gaze lingered on Miller's uniform, creased perfectly but worn without understanding. She could have crushed his arrogance with a single sentence. She didn't. Silence, she had learned long ago, was sharper than words. High above the base gate, in an observation tower, Fleet Admiral Thorne was monitoring a routine security drill. His eyes caught the commotion below. He zoomed in on the feed. The woman's posture, relaxed, grounded, hands resting lightly on the steering wheel, froze him. He knew that posture. He'd seen it in the field, under fire, in people who didn't flinch when chaos began. "Get me a closer view," he told his aide. Miller kept talking, louder now for the crowd. "You know how insulting this is? Real operators die for that trident. You think you can throw it on a jacket and waltz onto this base?" No response. Her eyes flicked briefly to his sidearm, to the barrier placement, to the shadows behind the guard hut. Calculating, always calculating. Then, before Miller could continue, the world changed. An explosion of sound, a klaxon blaring from somewhere deep within the base. Red lights flashed across the gatehouses. Someone shouted, "Incoming vehicle breach!" A black delivery truck came tearing down the access road, engine howling, smashing through a secondary barrier. Guards scattered. Miller froze, panic flashing in his eyes. Lana was already moving. Her door swung open with mechanical precision. She ducked low, her hand sweeping across the asphalt as if rehearsed 1,000 times. In a blink, she had assessed the entire perimeter. Everyone else was fixated on the truck, a giant, noisy distraction. Lana's instinct screamed something different. The truck's windshield was blacked out, the driver stiff, unmoving. A decoy, her head snapped toward the left perimeter fence. 3 shadows slipping through, fast and purposeful. "Assassins, get down!" she shouted, not a plea but a command forged in battle. Miller turned too late. Lana was already moving. The first assailant raised a weapon. She lunged, grabbed his wrist and twisted, bone cracked. Using his momentum, she pivoted and drove him into the barricade. One motion, no wasted movement. The second attacker came from behind. Lana ducked, spun, and used the car door as a shield, slamming it into his knees. A sharp elbow strike to the throat ended the fight before it began. The third hesitated, startled by the violence and precision before him. Lana covered the distance in 3 strides, disarmed him, and sent him sprawling. Silence reclaimed the gate. Then the decoy truck hit the barrier and exploded into a thunder of twisted metal and dust. When the smoke cleared, 3 unconscious intruders lay at Lana's feet. Miller stood rooted, his weapon still unsnapped in its holster. A convoy screeched to a halt. Admiral Thorne stepped out of his armored sedan, unshaken. His face was stone, his eyes fixed on the woman standing calmly amid chaos. He didn't need confirmation. He already knew. He walked toward her, ignoring the Marines forming a protective cordon. "Master-at-arms," he said without looking away from Lana. "Is this the woman you detained for impersonation?" Miller's voice cracked. Sir, Thorne cut him off. Computer, pull up active personnel file. Authorization code, Thorne Omega 7. A young aide tapped his tablet. The display illuminated the truth for everyone present. Rhoads. Lana, Commander, U.S. Navy SEALs, Special Warfare Development Group. Decorations, Silver Star. Bronze Star with Valor, Purple Heart X2. Medal of Honor. Gasps rippled through the guards. Someone muttered, "She's DevGru." Admiral Thorne nodded slowly, then faced Miller. That jacket you ordered her to remove was issued after Operation Nightlight. That trident was pinned on her chest by Admiral McCraven himself. You questioned her integrity because you couldn't imagine courage looking like this. Miller's face went white. Thorne turned back to Lana, his expression softening. Commander Rhoads, welcome home. He snapped a perfect salute. The crowd fell silent. Lana returned the salute with quiet precision, then simply said, "Next time, sir, maybe hire guards who see before they judge." A faint smile touched Thorne's lips. Already done. The incident would later be called the Gate Affair, a 5-second masterclass in discipline, awareness, and what real service looks like. For now, the base resumed its pulse, though no one present would ever forget the morning they mistook a legend for a fraud. The base never truly went back to normal after that morning. Rumors spread faster than any official report could contain them. In the mess hall, they whispered her name like a myth. Commander Lana Rhoads, the Quiet Seal. Her return had stirred something in the very bones of the naval community. Young recruits Googled her citation. Veterans traded stories they swore were true. A mission in Yemen, a rescue in Somalia, a firefight in which she had supposedly saved an entire platoon with nothing but her rifle and her will. No one knew which version was real. Lana never confirmed any of them. She didn't crave recognition. In fact, she despised it. Her strength lived in silence, in precision, in doing the job and moving on. But that silence unsettled people like Master-at-Arms Miller, who now found himself reassigned to base security instruction under direct supervision, her supervision. The first time they met again was in a small classroom buried in the bowels of the security complex. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. A whiteboard stood at the front, scrawled with tactical diagrams. Lana entered quietly, wearing the same worn jacket, her hair tied neatly. She didn't carry a weapon. She didn't need one. Her presence alone demanded focus. Miller stood when she entered, eyes forward, chest tight with shame. "At ease," she said simply, her voice even, controlled. No anger, no mockery. Just professionalism. He sat, unsure of what to expect. "Today," Lana began, "we'll review the events of last week. Every second, every choice, every oversight. I don't care about excuses. I care about awareness." She clicked a remote. The surveillance footage from the gate appeared on the screen. Miller's face lit up in panic as he watched himself barking at her, finger wagging, uniform stiff with arrogance. No one in the room spoke. The moment he accused her of stolen valor hung in the air like a stain. Then came the explosion, the chaos, and her impossible surgical takedown of 3 armed men. Lana paused the video at the frame showing her mid-strike. Her body low, eyes locked, precise. "Here," she said, circling her position with a marker. "This is not aggression. It's control. I didn't fight to dominate. I fought to end the threat as efficiently as possible. That is discipline. That is what this uniform represents." She turned, meeting Miller's eyes. "And this," she rewound to him, pointing at her insignia, "is what happens when bias replaces awareness." Miller swallowed hard, nodding silently. "Ma'am," he finally said, voice low. "I didn't see you." Lana tilted her head. "No, you saw me. You just didn't look. There's a difference." The rest of the session unfolded like a masterclass in humility. She dissected every moment, not to humiliate, but to educate. Her tone was steady, her focus absolute. By the end, Miller wasn't the same man who had mocked her at the gate. He approached her afterward, eyes clear. "Commander," he said, "thank you. I won't forget this." She gave a faint nod. "Good, then my work's done." But her work was far from done. A week later, Admiral Thorne summoned her to headquarters. The air was thick with unease. She entered the office to find the Admiral standing beside a large digital display. On it was a classified report marked "Eyes Only." "Commander," he said, gesturing her closer, "the attack at the gate wasn't random. The men you neutralized were part of something larger. We've intercepted chatter. Someone inside this base leaked the schedule of my convoy. Lana's expression didn't change, but her pulse sharpened. An inside job? Thorne nodded grimly. Worse, it might involve one of our own officers. And whoever it is, they're careful. We've had no digital traces, no intercepted comms since that morning. He paused, looking at her with quiet intensity. I want you to investigate. Off the record. No one knows except me. You'll have full autonomy. You'll report only to me, she nodded. Understood. That night, Lana walked through the base with silent purpose. The hum of generators, the echo of boots on metal walkways, the faint salty breeze from the Atlantic. All sounds she knew intimately. She started with the security logs. Something about the timing of the breach gnawed at her. The decoy truck's arrival had been too precise, too synchronized with the guard changeover. That wasn't coincidence. It was choreography. Hours of footage later, she found it, a single frame most would have missed. A man in an officer's uniform at the perimeter fence 10 minutes before the attack, flashlight flicking twice in a signal. His face obscured by shadow. The next morning, she requested a quiet meeting with Thorne. But before she could, she noticed something wrong. The Admiral's office was sealed off. 2 armed Marines stood guard. Commander Rhoads, one of them said. Sir's been medevaced. Heart attack. Lana's stomach turned. She knew Thorne. He didn't just have heart attacks. Someone had silenced him. She played it calm, thanked them, and walked away. But inside, the storm had started. She had no command authority now. No backup, no one to trust. And yet she didn't stop. That wasn't who she was. By midnight, she was deep inside the base's restricted archives, tracing the personnel rotations. One name kept appearing on every recent assignment connected to Thorne. Captain Ronald Pierce. Former Intel, now security operations. Too clean, too smooth. She knew the type. Men who thought control was power and subtlety was weakness. Lana found his office empty but unlocked. A mistake he'd regret. She scanned the room, eyes catching a faint reflection under his desk, a hidden drive port. She connected a flash decryptor and waited. The files that appeared on screen froze her cold. Schedules, maps, identifiers. Not of U.S. convoys, of SEAL teams. Units overseas. Someone was selling mission data. Before she could pull the drive, the door opened. Pierce stepped in, eyes narrowing. Well, he said softly, I was wondering when you'd come snooping. He moved closer, voice slick with false calm. You just don't know when to stay retired, do you, Commander? Lana's reply was ice cold. You're a traitor. Pierce smiled thinly. Big word. But you see, loyalty's a funny thing. Admirals, orders, flags, they change. But money, that's consistent. He reached for his pistol. Lana moved first. A chair flew, shattering against the wall. Pierce ducked, but not fast enough. Her knee connected with his chest. He stumbled, fired a shot that went wide. Papers scattered. Her elbow slammed into his jaw, sending him sprawling, but Pierce wasn't weak. He grabbed a shard of glass and slashed upward, grazing her forearm. Blood welled, but she didn't flinch. Her hand closed around his wrist, twisting until he dropped it. They crashed into the desk, monitors toppling. Pierce reached for a sidearm drawer. She kicked it shut, pinning his arm. Her voice came out low, calm, deadly. Who else? He smirked through blood. You'll never find them. They're not just on this base. She drove her fist into his throat, ending the fight. He gasped for air, unconscious. Moments later, alarms blared again. Reinforcements were coming. She knew she couldn't explain this, not yet. She grabbed the drive, wiped the terminal, and slipped out a maintenance exit. Outside, the early dawn light was just breaking, pale and cold. Lana looked toward the distant command tower where Thorne once stood. She made a silent vow. Whoever did this would pay, and as the morning sun cut across the base, her shadow stretched long, the shadow of a woman the Navy had nearly forgotten, but who was about to remind them what a true SEAL could do. The sun had barely crested the horizon when Lana Rhoads vanished from the base grid. Her ID access was revoked, her quarters sealed, and her name quietly added to a pending review list. Officially, she was under investigation for unauthorized use of restricted systems. Unofficially, she had become a ghost, the kind the military only whispered about. She moved through the outskirts of Norfolk's naval perimeter like vapor, her steps silent, her purpose unshakable. She knew she had one chance to uncover the network behind Pierce before they buried the evidence, and her, for good. The flash drive she'd taken was encoded with an untraceable cipher. But Lana had spent too many years in black operations not to recognize the pattern. It was an old agency algorithm, one that required a live decryption key embedded in a secure naval relay. And there was only one active relay within 100 miles, the one beneath Fort Seabridge, an old Cold War outpost long since mothballed and off-limits. She reached the wire fence just after midnight, slicing through it with surgical precision. The wind carried the distant roar of the ocean, and somewhere beyond the dunes, the relay tower blinked like a lone eye in the dark. Inside the bunker, she worked fast. The walls hummed with dormant machinery. Dust coated the terminals. She connected the drive, overrode the system, and watched the data begin to decrypt. But what appeared on the screen wasn't just evidence. It was treason. Dozens of high-ranking names appeared in cascading files, officers, contractors, even political liaisons, all tied to an offshore network moving intel and arms under the guise of training operations. The last upload was time-stamped for that morning, meaning the next leak was already in motion. Then she saw it, a file labeled Project Riptide. Her stomach tightened. She opened it. The plan detailed a simulated drill at the base scheduled for 600, except the coordinates didn't match any legitimate training grid. It wasn't a drill. It was an armed extraction. Someone was coming to wipe the site, and everyone on it, clean. Lana didn't hesitate. She pulled the drive, grabbed a portable radio, and transmitted on an old SEAL emergency frequency. "This is Commander Rhoads, code Delta 16. Unauthorized military operation inbound on base perimeter. All active personnel, stand by for full lockdown. Static." Then a faint reply. "Commander, this is Captain Vega, SEAL Team 9. We raid you. Who authorized this transmission?" "Nobody," Lana said. "But if you don't trust me, you'll have bigger problems than protocol. Check your own radar in 10 minutes. She cut the line and moved. Back on base, the lights were still burning when she arrived. MPs mobilizing, sirens beginning to wail. She moved through the confusion like a shadow. No one stopped her. They didn't have time. From the eastern ridge, headlights appeared, black SUVs with no markings moving in tight formation. The gates didn't even resist. Someone had overridden them remotely. Lana grabbed a fallen rifle from a stunned guard and took position behind a barrier. The first vehicle crashed through and her shots rang out, precise, controlled, mechanical. One tire burst, sending the SUV spinning. The second swerved. Chaos erupted. Out of the smoke came the men, masked, armed with silenced carbines, their tactics too clean to be mercenaries. They were trained, special operations trained. Lana ducked behind a barrier, returning fire. Two went down. A third flanked right. She pivoted, low, and dropped him with a controlled double tap. Her breath was steady, every move practiced. Then, amid the gunfire, she saw a face she recognized, Captain Pierce. Bleeding, bruised, but alive, leading them. He spotted her too and smiled through the chaos. "Persistent, aren't you, Commander?" "Persistent enough to finish what you started," she shouted back, firing again. He dove behind a vehicle, returning fire. The bullets sparked off the metal near her head. The fight surged forward, raw, brutal, close range. She finally closed the distance, disarming him in a blur of movement. His pistol skidded across the asphalt. "Who paid you?" she demanded. Pierce laughed, spitting blood. "You think this ends here? They're already above your pay grade. Generals, politicians, they'll bury this before sunrise." He reached for a detonator. Lana grabbed his wrist. They struggled, then a gunshot echoed. Pierce froze. A red bloom spread across his chest. Behind him stood General Wyatt, the base commander himself, weapon still raised. "Drop it, Commander," Wyatt ordered. Lana turned, disbelief flooding her. "You?" Wyatt's expression was cold, bureaucratic. "You were supposed to disappear quietly, Rhoads. Instead, you made a mess. You leaked our operations." "You killed Thorne," she said, fury building. He gave a small, cruel smile. "Collateral damage. This machine runs on sacrifice. You should know that better than anyone." He fired. The shot grazed her shoulder. Pain exploded, but she stayed on her feet. She dove for cover, rolling behind a sandbag wall. Another shot tore through the air. She fired back, grazing his side. They circled, both wounded, both breathing hard. Wyatt sneered. You think one woman can stop an entire chain of command? No, she said, reloading. But one truth can. From her pocket, she pulled the drive. Everything's on here. Every name, every account, every lie. Wyatt's eyes widened. He lunged. Too late. Lana threw the drive into a nearby comms relay and slammed the emergency broadcast switch. Across the base, loudspeakers crackled to life. Then, silence. A distorted voice boomed through the speakers. Thorne's voice, pre-recorded. This is Admiral James Thorne. If you're hearing this, I am dead. And if Commander Rhoads is standing where I think she is, then justice has begun. Wyatt froze. Thorne's voice continued. All data linked to the Riptide operation has been transmitted to the Joint Chiefs and Military Press Corps. May God have mercy on those who betrayed their oath. Wyatt's face went white. Lana didn't let him finish. Her shot was clean, precise. He fell before the sentence left his lips. The base fell into chaos again, but this time it wasn't confusion. It was revelation. Troops arrested officers. Files were seized. Helicopters arrived, carrying investigators. By dawn, the sun rose over a base surrounded by federal vehicles. And for the first time in its long, proud history, it was closed. Lana stood on the ridge, arm bandaged, wind tugging at her jacket. She watched the flags being lowered, the gates sealed. Captain Vega approached, quiet. They're shutting it down. 3 generals signed the order themselves. Whole place is under review. Lana nodded. Good, Vega hesitated. What will you do now? She looked out toward the horizon, the ocean beyond it glinting in morning light. Same thing I've always done, she said softly. Serve, just not for them. He nodded, understanding. You know, ma'am, a lot of cadets are talking about you. They said what you did changed everything, she smiled faintly. Then maybe it was worth the scars, he saluted. It was, Commander. It was. As he walked away, Lana took one last look at the empty base. Somewhere deep in her chest, the old ache of service still burned, not for medals, not for rank, but for truth. She turned toward the camera drone hovering quietly nearby, part of the Navy's final documentation. Her expression calm, eyes unbroken. For every woman or man who's been silenced in uniform, she said quietly, don't wait for permission to stand tall. You already earned it. The camera zoomed out, the base behind her bathed in golden light, and as the screen faded to black, her voice echoed one last time. This is Commander Lana Rhoads. I don't fight for orders anymore. I fight for what's right.